Welcome back to the Anxiety and Free podcast. Hey, my loves. Today we're talking about taming the anxiety of being seen. And this episode was really inspired by my various interactions with other psychotherapists who tell me, like, I don't know how you show up online. I can't do that. Or, with where things are going in the world and in the mental health field, I know that I need to show up online and market my business, and I just can't do it. I don't want to be seen. I don't want to be heard. I don't like the way I look on camera. I hear so many things. So, we're going to really be talking about how you can tame that fear of being seen online and maybe even marketing in general, because some people, it's not even in their business plan to market online. For some people, it's I'm going to networking events, I'm going to trade shows, whatever the case may be. And I guess I'll give you a quick disclaimer. I'm referencing the experience of psychotherapists. However, I do think this can apply to a variety of entrepreneurs across niches. So if you're watching and you're someone who knows that they need to show up online, which I think you do, okay? This will be helpful for you. So, I've been a psychotherapist for 15 years and I was not doing online marketing that entire time. I remember the first time I tried doing a video for YouTube and I did not seem natural. I seemed robotic and I kept watching it thinking, she seems fake. I was thinking this about myself. She looks fake. She seems fake. She's in a pretty office. I was in downtown Denver recording this. However, I did not seem authentic and I knew that at the time. So I don't think I played around with that for much longer. It would take me years later to actually over a decade later to circle back to trying online marketing. And at that time, I was actually doing an MLM. And that was the only reason I started marketing online. And that was so uncomfortable. I'm telling you, it was one of the most uncomfortable things I had ever done in my life up to that point. And I learned a lot from it. And I went on to start my business here. I've had several business names throughout the 4 states we've lived in. I landed on Whole Heart Counseling and I said, I'm going to open up my own business, my online virtual therapy practice. And I knew I was going to use those skills from my MLM days to market myself online. And I'm so glad I did, because fast forward, now it's 2025. I have no issue recording a video of myself. I feel very comfortable in front of the camera. I do think it helps that I like the way I look and I put work into how I look when I show up, so that helps. I have taken vocal lessons. I have a vocal coach here in Tampa that helps me with my speech, and I've learned how to sing better, speak better, show up in a way that I'm proud of. And so those are some things that help me. However, when I talk to other people about taming their anxiety about showing up, they say, well, I'm not in a place where I want to take vocal lessons. Okay, maybe you don't. And maybe they also don't want a social media coach, or maybe you don't have the funds in your business to hire someone to do the marketing for you. I am the face of my business. This is a brand that I have built, and it would be very hard for me to allow someone else to just start showing up for me. I have tried AI creators specifically to do the marketing for me. People did not resonate with that. And I think it's because I'm so used to showing up for my own business as the brand owner. And so when I've tried to use AI, it didn't work. So I've come to this conclusion that I just got to be who I am. And I've just got to keep showing up and create a sustainable schedule for myself. If you are also an entrepreneur and any of this resonates, I am curious to hear your feedback. So please leave a comment, email me, however you want to get in touch, because I would love to know how this shows up in your life. And maybe you're in a different stage of life right now where you are like some of the therapists that I'm talking to who say, I need to show up and I don't feel comfortable to, and I don't want to do it online. And even in person, I feel awkward. I really think one of the 5 things I'm going to share with you today is going to be helpful. So the first is we have to tackle that fear of judgment. And a lot of times when people show up online, they fear being seen because they haven't seen themselves. Or maybe they saw themselves in a video, in a picture. I meet a lot of people who say, oh, I'm not comfortable with pictures, right? And it's because we're looking at the video, we're looking at the picture, and we're not comfortable with what we see. So I want to encourage you to turn that fear of judgment into some action, because when you have this fear, it's going to just stick in your brain unless you do something about it. And one way you could do that is actually just recording videos and not posting them. Sounds simple, right? Record the videos, don't post them. Don't just record the videos though, just to say you did it. After you record them, go into the editing feature on whatever social media platform you're on, watch the video. identify what part of that video makes you uncomfortable. And you can do this with photos too. I'm just going to stick to videos because what I hear is the video marketing aspect of entrepreneurship is something that people are very intimidated by and fearful of. So watch the video. Is it that you hold your head in a certain way? Is it that you don't like the way you speak? Is it that you didn't like your hair? Maybe there were too many flyaways, whatever the case may be. Maybe it was your posture. Maybe you did not appear confident because you were slouching. These are things that are fixable. Okay. So no longer are the days where you take this video and you have the fear and you delete it and you just stop showing up online. This is a business that you're running and it's time to show up, and you can once you conquer that fear of judgment. So hopefully you hear that I'm encouraging you to go beyond just recording or taking pictures of yourself. Actually analyze that video and get comfortable with the uncomfortable. Get comfortable with seeing things about yourself that you don't like, things that you want to improve upon, and make a plan. How do I change this? Okay, you're only going to get better at recording videos if you practice. So I don't care how many drafts you have of yourself in a video. I don't care how many you delete. At some point, you're going to get past that fear because you're going to start perfecting those things. If you noticed you were slouching, you're going to stop that. If you notice that, you're looking down instead of at the camera, that's something that you can tweak. If you don't like that you use a lot of filler words because you think that's a lot of editing I would have to do, and I don't really like that I use those words, train yourself to not use them. And a good tip for that is to say the word in your head, but don't say it out loud. I love that there are platforms that help you edit out filler words. And sometimes it's just how we talk, right? So instead of judging ourselves, let's just say a lot of us use filler words, and there are editing platforms that will easily remove those for you with a click of a button. In fact, the platform that I use, it's so easy to edit those filler words. So I don't judge myself when I use one, and I've trained myself to use them less. So the next thing we need to talk about is imposter syndrome, that fear of not being good enough, not expert enough. What if I can't come and just talk about the topic? You'll notice that I have a comfort in just talking about things. And at the same time, I have some bullet points in front of me that I can use to glance at. I don't need to write it all out. I can't do that during a video. That would be too much editing for me to take time to stop and look at the video. However, I can just quickly glance at the talking point and then just run with it. How did I get comfortable doing that? Lots of online videos. And there was a 1 year span where I was on a lot of podcasts too. I even had a podcast profile up on one of those sites that market you as a podcaster or a podcast guest. And I had so much experience, and I would go and listen to those episodes. How do I sound? Do I sound confident? Did I sound like someone who is not an expert in that particular topic? What were some things I could have said that would have made me feel like I'm more of an expert? Ultimately, let me get out of my own head. What did people say about my performance on the episode? Did people have any takeaway? Did people relate to me? Were they resonating with the information I was sharing? 9 times out of 10, they were. And they were saying, Marquita, that was a great episode. So thank you for sharing your expertise. So I think that's helpful, just to acknowledge that imposter syndrome could be at play, and ultimately reminding ourselves that we can't be experts at everything. Even as a psychotherapist, I could pull open a DSM-5. That is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. We're on the 5th edition. I can open it and pull out several sections that I just don't know enough about. And that's when I refer out. So, so one tactic here is just only accepting invitations where you're going to knock it out the park. If you feel like you're going to have to do it or you're not going to represent your brand well, it is okay to say no. That opportunity is not for me. Or maybe after I do more trainings on that topic, I will feel more comfortable being a guest expert in that area. And if it's just not for you, it's not for you. It's okay to say no. So I know that imposter syndrome, it will grow if you feed it. So we don't need to feed it thoughts about you not being great. We don't need to feed it thoughts about you not being an expert in a particular area. Instead, we can focus on the areas that you are competent in, the areas that you do feel like you're an expert in, and the areas where if you talk about that subject, you could talk about it for 20 minutes and come up with a whole bunch of things and layers to explore. And you're going to sound like you know what you're talking about. So there's that imposter syndrome. All right, now let's talk about perfectionism. This is something that I will admit I I deal with. I won't say I struggle with it because I like a hint of perfectionism in my life. I know that probably sounds wrong. Perfectionism keeps me striving to be better. I understand intellectually that I will never be perfect. That's God. That's not my role. I can never step into perfection. However, as a Christian woman, if my goal is to be more Christ like, then I am to be in pursuit of that. So that's how I handle perfectionism. Maybe if you're a Christian, maybe that resonates with you. We are made in the image of God. And so we are supposed to strive to be more like Him. And in that striving, I just remind myself, well, I'm never going to be perfect. However, each day I can get 1% better. So that's one way I handle it as a Christian woman in particular. And the second thing that I think would really be helpful for perfectionism is this idea that that's not what people want anyways. I think years ago, especially on certain sites, you can take your guess, there were only celebrities and public figures who had high followings and people who always wanted to know about their lives. And those people painted us the image of perfection. And then came reality TV, where we started to learn these people are not perfect. They are humans having a human experience. In a lot of ways, they struggle with some of the things I struggle with. They're excited about some of the things I'm excited about. And so when you really think about that, it can break up your perfectionism because reality TV shows people's reality. And when we show up online, for some reason, we feel that we have to show up with the picture perfect perfectionist version of ourselves that people actually don't even relate to. So remind yourself of that the next time you're thinking about perfectionism. Also, if you're perfect, you've already arrived. And so, where is the growth? What is there to learn? And I don't know about you, but when I'm following anyone's story or I'm watching a video, I want to hear what they struggled with. I'm a person that says, people don't always have to struggle, yet we're human. So we're going to struggle with something. So when people share their ups and downs and their ebbs and flows in business and how they're navigating it, it just makes them relatable. It makes me lean in and I don't pull away. I do, however, pull away from people who paint this image of perfectionism because one, it's icky when people do that. And two, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I believe you're putting on a facade. You're putting on a mask and you're pretending to be that way. Who knows why? As a psychotherapist, it just makes me have a lot of thoughts about their childhood and the things that maybe they have not explored in therapy. So, yeah, hopefully those three things can help you with perfectionism if you find yourself struggling with it. And then the fourth thing is vulnerability as strength. I think it's such a strength to come online and be vulnerable. And that was something I decided to do at the beginning of last year when I decided to be more open about my obsessive compulsive disorder diagnosis that I got at age 19. I had had the symptoms since I was around age 7. That's my earliest memory. And I had never talked about it online. I had only said, hey, I'm a psychotherapist. I want to encourage you to go to therapy. And I too have struggled with anxiety. I too have struggled with depression. I've even struggled with childhood trauma. I would never say I've struggled with OCD. And there's a reason for that. I did not feel comfortable being vulnerable in that area. And at that time, I did not see vulnerability as a strength. However, I do now. The more that I've opened up about my OCD journey, the more that I share online that I am not this perfect human. I am having a human experience. I have moments where I want to run and hide from my kids and they find me and they sit with me, right? And we just laugh at it. Sometimes I want to speak more than I want to do therapy. Sometimes I am not always happy with my husband, right? There's just no perfectionism. And by the way, the days that I don't want to do individual therapy have nothing to do with the clients themselves. It's all about, am I showing up in a way that they deserve? Right. So if I feel that it's been a stressful week and my energy's off, that doesn't feel right to my clients. But then I remind myself, you're going to switch gears as soon as you hop in the session with that person, and you're going to be all about them as you always are. And they're going to also ask how you are, which my clients often do. And then I just get to be honest and say, it's been a challenging week. However, I'm so happy to be sitting across from you today. And I'm really eager to hear what's been going on so I can support you. Simple, easy, right? Simple and not easy, as they say working out is. However, once I drop that fear of judgment, once I stop trying to show up as a perfectionist, it doesn't matter. My vulnerability is a strength, even in the therapy room. So I want to encourage you to think about the ways in which people might relate to your vulnerability, how it might be a talking point for you to say, like, look, I'm being very vulnerable right now. I've had several guests on the podcast so far, and 2 out of 3 of the guests have cried. too. And I said, you're safe here. Like, I want that vulnerability more than anything on this podcast, because I do believe we have entered a time where even reality TV can be fake and manufactured at times. People have said that. I don't know specific shows, but people kind of hint around about it when they come off of these shows and maybe when their NDAs expire. And so even what we're seeing on TV is not always authentic. So when we come online, we are hitting a gold mine if we show up with our vulnerability, and we can change our mindsets from seeing it as a weakness to a strength. Now, the last one is for you to break it all down. Break it all down. If you know that you need to show up online, you don't have to create 7 videos to post 7 days a week. You can even just start off and say, you know what, my goal at minimum is to post 1 to 2 videos a week. And I'm really going to practice, like we talked about in that first step, practice recording videos of myself, practice what I want my speech to sound like, how I want to stand, how I want to pose if it's photos that I'm posting of myself. And you can do all of that while breaking this down into smaller steps. Maybe a step for you is tuning into more podcasts like this to learn more about how your anxiety is showing up, so you can really get a handle on that. Maybe you go to therapy and you start working with your therapist on taming the anxiety of being seen. And yes, this is something you can work with a therapist on, because hopefully I've described today how layered this is. And this can really be an issue that stems far back to your childhood. It really can. Very easily can a session go there and people think, oh my goodness, I didn't know there was so much behind this issue. I didn't know this topic would take so much processing. And it's beautiful when that happens, because then people see themselves as humans who are deserving of therapeutic space, deserving of a listening ear, and deserving of someone saying, your issue, although others may see it as small, is so big to me. And I can't wait to burst that issue wide open. Okay. You can tell how I do therapy. I cannot wait to get that issue wide open so I can see all of what's in there impacting it. So taming your anxiety of being seen is an issue that is worthy of therapy. Maybe you go to a marketing coach, or maybe you start studying someone who posts a lot and is in your field and you really admire them. Don't just see their posts and videos and read and hit like and keep it moving and offer a quick comment. Study it. What did you like about it? What about that person's presentation could you adopt if that's something you really like and you want to show up for your community in that way? So, this is all about studying. We're studying ourselves, we're studying others, we're tackling that fear day by day. We're setting small goals. We're celebrating the small wins. We're celebrating the big wins. And ultimately, we are removing the mask of perfectionism and allowing ourselves to be humans who, in fact, can never be perfect. So that was this episode of Taming the Anxiety of Being Seen. I really hope this is helpful for someone who is in business and knows that they need to show up online, who is wanting to start a business and knows that they will have to do some form of online and in-person marketing, and you really wanted some support with that. I hope these tips were helpful. As always, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel and share with a friend, like this episode. And of course, if you're listening anywhere else, I'd love to hear from you. So please leave a comment and enjoy your day. The Anxiety and Free podcast is sponsored by Find My Therapist, connecting you with therapists at findmytherapist.us. If you found today's episode helpful, please share it with someone who might need it. Tune in next week for more conversations on navigating mental health and finding your freedom.